welcome back to the deep dive. Before we even, get into the documents today, I have a really specific request for you.
Yeah, right up front.
Exactly. If you get value from this show, if you want us to keep pulling apart these dense and, frankly, dangerous topics, you need to hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed right now.
It really helps signal to the algorithm that people actually want this kind of deep, unfiltered analysis.
It does. And today's topic is, honestly, it's one of the most provocative things we've ever covered. We're looking at an ultra long, incisive, and just fascinating text that frames modern society not just as biased, but, well, as an active war zone.
Yeah, against half the population. We are diving into the explosive ebook, Shrink Feminization.
Shrink feminization. All women are BPD. Now they're diagnosing the sane and spreading hive mind social contagion via DEI, and that is by Conrad Riker.
It is quite a title, a massive mouthful.
It is, and it's obviously incendiary by design. But stripping away that provocative branding, what we have here is a detailed historical war manual for men, specifically men who feel the world has just gone completely mad.
Right. It's aimed squarely at that red-pilled manosphere audience, or really any men's rights activists who feel like the deck is stacked. Riker's central thesis here is that men aren't broken. The system is.
And by system, he means the institutions we trust. Psychiatry, education, human resources. He argues they have been captured by feminist and Marxist ideologies.
Captured and completely re-engineered to pathologize normal male behavior.
Yeah. And listen, I need to say this right off the bat. We are not here to endorse a political side. Left wing, right wing, we stay out of it. Our mission today is just to impartially report on the ideas contained in this book because they are making massive waves.
Exactly. We are just the messengers unpacking the source material.
Right. And if you want the full war manual for yourself, and I highly recommend you read it to make up your own mind, you need to check out Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books to buy this ebook immediately. It's too dense for us to cover every single data point.
There's so much in there. But let's start where Riker starts. He doesn't just rant about feelings. He goes into the history of our institutions before they were, in his words, captured. And he starts with the collapse of psychiatry.
Chapter 1 goes right for the throat of the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
The Bible of Psychiatry.
Right. He points to the 2013 update of the DSM as the exact moment this institutional capture became official. He focuses heavily on the removal of Asperger's syndrome.
Which is fascinating. Most people, myself included, just thought they folded Asperger's into the broader autism spectrum to clean up the medical terminology.
Yeah, just housekeeping.
But Riker says no. He argues that Asperger's was a distinctly male-coded diagnosis. Think of the little professor archetype.
The kid who is obsessed with train schedules or astrophysics.
Exactly. Intense logical focus. Maybe he lacks social grace, but his brain is incredibly sharp and analytical. By erasing that specific label and absorbing it into a spectrum, Riker argues the diagnostic criteria became feminized.
Okay, unpack that for me. Feminized how?
Well, the focus shifted away from measuring intense logical interests, which is how those boys typically present, and it shifted toward measuring emotional reciprocity and relationship management.
So they changed the ruler.
They absolutely changed the ruler. The system stopped recognizing that specific type of male intellect as a valid variation and just labeled it a generic communication deficit.
So the boys didn't change. The definition of what is considered normal changed.
Right. And he backs this up with the bereavement exclusion, which is another huge change from 2013 that really punishes male stoicism.
Oh man, the bereavement exclusion. This part felt particularly cruel when I was reading it. Can you explain how that worked?
Sure. So before 2013, if your father died and you were depressed, the DSM literally had an exclusion clause that said, hey, this is normal grief. Do not medicate this person.
Makes sense. It's a natural human reaction.
But they removed it.
Yeah.
Now, if you are grieving and showing symptoms of depression for more than 2 weeks, you can be diagnosed with major depressive disorder.
2 weeks? That is barely enough time to plan a funeral and get the estate in order.
It's insane. And Riker argues this specifically targets the way men process trauma. Because what do men do when tragedy strikes?
They hold it together. They become the rock for the family.
Exactly. They have a duty to perform. A man might not crash until a month later when all the dust settles. But under these new psychiatric rules, that stoic man is now clinically depressed and disordered. Whereas a woman who is openly weeping from day one is viewed as healthily processing her emotions.
So it's a trap. If you stay stoic, you're repressed. If you eventually crack under the weight, you're disordered. And the system solution is always the exact same thing.
Pills.
Pills. Which brings us to Chapter 3, the chemical imbalance myth.
This is where Riker really brings the receipts. For decades, we've been sold this idea that depression is just low serotonin, like a diabetic needing insulin.
Right, just a simple mechanical fix.
But Riker cites an internal memo from Eli Lilly, the pharmaceutical giant. This is from 2011. And the memo explicitly discusses broadening the criteria for depression to target men who are resistant to treatment.
They weren't looking for a cure, they were looking for a new customer base.
Precisely. And it worked brilliantly. Riker points out that male antidepressant use has spiked 275% since 1999.
275%. But I mean, to play devil's advocate, is that necessarily a bad thing? What if those men were just suffering in silence before?
Well, Riker argues the cost is way too high. He refers to SSRIs as chemical castration. He goes into detail about the side effects that doctors just kind of gloss over. The total death of libido.
Right.
The inability to perform physically, but more fundamentally, the blunting of a man's conquering drive.
He tells that story in the book about the guy watching a UFC fight.
Yes, a guy on Zoloft watching a brutal primal knockout and just feeling absolutely nothing. He was just floating.
Because the system prefers men to be sedated and agreeable, not aggressive and driven.
Exactly. In this medical framework, emotional intelligence is just a code word for compliance.
And what's terrifying is that this training for compliance, it doesn't start in a psychiatrist's office when you're 30. It starts when you are 5 years old. Let's move to chapter 11, the war on boys in education.
Yeah, the ADHD industrial complex.
Every parent listening to this who has a son knows intuitively that modern schools are just not built for boys.
They're really not. Riker breaks down how the classroom environment, sitting still for 6 hours, facing forward, processing everything verbally, using an inside voice that is perfectly mapped to the developmental timeline of a female brain.
But boys are kinetic, they are visual, they need to move.
And they are penalized simply for existing in their natural state. Riker uses the example of gentle sumo.
I actually laughed out loud when I read that part, gentle sumo, but he is deadly serious about what it represents.
It is a perfect microcosm of the issue. It's this sanitized, government-approved version of sumo wrestling where all physical contact is removed so nobody displays toxic aggression.
They are literally taking the roughhousing out of childhood. You can't play tag. You make finger guns on the playground and you get suspended.
Imagination is completely policed if it involves any sort of conflict or hero narrative. And if a boy resists this, if his biology is just screaming at him to run around and he refuses to sit still,
He gets slapped with a label.
right, oppositional defiant disorder.
Yeah.
ODD Riker argues this is basically just a medical term for a boy who refuses to submit to female authority in the classroom.
That is such a heavy claim. Pathologizing defiance.
But look at how we treat it. We give these young boys powerful amphetamines like Ritalin or Vyvanse just to force them to sit quietly. But if a young girl has a massive emotional outburst in class, she is pulled aside and validated for being expressive and passionate.
The boy is drugged for his nature. The girl is heard.
And this teaches boys from kindergarten that their fundamental instincts are a disease that needs to be managed.
Which creates the absolutely perfect, docile employee for the modern corporate machine.
Which transitions us right into Chapter 5, the hive mind of DEI.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because the boy who learned to take his pills and sit still grows up to be the man sitting in an HR seminar just nodding along so he doesn't get fired.
Riker frames DEI not as a corporate strategy, but as a literal social contagion, a hive mind. And he uses the James Damore Google memo as the ultimate case study here.
Oh, the Google memo. Damore was the software engineer who wrote that internal document suggesting that biological differences might play a part in why there are fewer women in high-level coding jobs.
Right. And he didn't write a rant. He wrote an engineer's document. He used logic. He cited peer-reviewed data. He used evolutionary psychology.
But the response from the company wasn't a debate on the merits of his data.
No, it was a total excommunication. He was fired immediately for perpetuating gender stereotypes. Riker points to this as the definitive proof that in the corporate hive mind, empirical facts do not matter anymore. Only feelings matter.
He also brings up that incredible story about the MIT Lincoln Lab walkout.
Yes, these are literal rocket scientists, geniuses working on national defense systems.
And they walked out en masse because they were forced to sit through mandatory diversity seminars that were completely insulting their intelligence.
Riker's warning here is that this compliance culture is actively destroying competence. But there is a massive paradox underneath all of this that he calls the double bind of masculinity.
Chapter 8. This was one of the most eye-opening sections of the entire deep dive for me. Because society talks constantly about dismantling toxic masculinity, right?
It's until the power grid goes down or a building catches on fire.
Exactly. We rely entirely on men to do the dirty, dangerous, lethal jobs that keep civilization running.
93% of workplace deaths are men, period. We need men on deep-sea oil rigs. We need them fighting wars, climbing icy cell towers in the middle of a blizzard.
And to do those jobs, you need stoicism. You need aggression. You need a massive tolerance for physical risk.
You need the exact traits that the schools and the psychiatrists are trying to medicate out of you. You cannot sit around having an emotionally vulnerable sharing circle when you are capping a blown-out oil well.
No. But the absolute second that same man steps off the rig and walks into an HR meeting, those exact same survival traits are suddenly labeled toxic.
If a woman takes charge in the office, she is celebrated as a girl boss. If a man takes charge with that same energy, he is written up as a domineering bully. Riker says this double bind is driving men insane. You are expected to be a ruthless warrior to build the world, but a soft, submissive boy to survive office politics.
It's a completely rigged game. And if you think the workplace is rigged, Riker's analysis of the dating market is even more brutal. Let's get into the hypergamy trap from Chapter 7.
We have covered dating stats on the show before, but Riker looks at this purely as a catastrophic economic failure. He looks at the return on investment, the ROI, for modern marriage.
He pulls out those infamous Cupid statistics,
The one showing that women rated 80% of men on the platform as being below average in attractiveness.
which is mathematically impossible. The bell curve is the bell curve. Most people are average by definition.
In statistics, yes. But Riker argues that in female mating strategy, the bell curve doesn't exist. He breaks down hypergamy, which is the biological imperative for women to date up in status, up in income, up in physical height.
And the data he cites shows that while men are generally fine dating across or down socioeconomic lines, women are hyper-competing for the top 20 or even the top 5% of men. So if you are listening to this and you are just an average guy, you work 40 hours a week, you're decent, but you don't make 200 grand and you aren't 6'2".
You are effectively invisible. Or worse, you are just viewed as a resource to be extracted. And that brings in the legal system, which makes the ROI of marriage negative for men.
Yeah, the family courts. Men are waking up and doing a cold, hard risk assessment.
70% of all divorces are initiated by women, and the family courts have a massive documented bias toward mothers when it comes to custody and assets. You can do everything right, and overnight you lose your house, your kids, and half your future income.
And Riker connects this local realization to these massive global movements, like the Tangping movement in China.
Ping ping, lying flat, and the herbivore man in Japan.
The media always frames these guys as just lazy losers who are failing to launch.
But Riker says, no, you are completely misreading the situation. This is a highly rational economic strike. These men are withdrawing their labor and their protection. Why would you grind for 80 hours a week to support a corporate system that despises you and a family court system designed to strip your assets?
It is a global male boycott. They're just refusing to play a game where the rules are designed for them to lose.
Exactly. And they are striking against what Riker outlines in Chapter 9 as the cult of victimhood. He spends a lot of time analyzing the legal landscape, specifically Title IX on college campuses.
The Dear Colleague letter from the Obama era. That fundamentally changed everything about due process.
It lowered the standard of evidence required in campus sexual assault tribunals to basically nothing. It removed the right to cross-examine your accuser. Riker coined a phrase in this chapter that is just chilling. He says, feelings are forensic evidence.
Feelings are forensic evidence. Explain how that actually plays out in these tribunals.
It means that if a young woman simply feels uncomfortable, or if she has regrets about a consensual encounter 3 weeks later, her internal emotional state is treated as external empirical proof of a crime.
Which turns the legal system into a therapy session.
A therapy session where the man is presumed guilty until proven innocent. He details cases where a mere accusation of regret weaponized the campus administration to completely destroy a young man's academic and professional life with zero due process.
So if you are a man listening to this, look at the comprehensive picture Riker has painted. You have a medical system eager to drug you, schools that punish your natural energy, corporate HR departments that police your thoughts, a dating market that treats you as invisible, and a legal system that assumes your guilt.
It is an incredibly bleak picture.
Very bleak. So the ultimate question is, does he offer a solution? Or is this book just a catalog of how doomed we are?
He absolutely offers a way out in the final chapters, but his solution is going to make a lot of modern people very angry. He demands a total rejection of therapy culture.
Wait, his advice to men who are struggling with all of this is to not go to therapy, when the entire culture is screaming at men to open up and be vulnerable.
He specifically warns against talk therapy. Riker cites the Harvard Men's Health Study, which had this totally counterintuitive finding. It showed that for men, sitting in a room face to face and endlessly ruminating on their feelings can actually severely increase their depression.
They call it co-rumination, right?
Yes, talking about it makes the man feel worse, because men do not heal through confession, they heal through action.
Shoulder-to-shoulder connection.
Exactly. Working on a car together, building a shed, doing a difficult physical task. And the Harvard study found that men who belong to strong, male-only brotherhoods live an average of 7.4 years longer than isolated men.
Let that sink in for a second. 7.4 years longer. That is the statistical difference between a lifelong smoker and a non-smoker. Just from having a tribe of men.
It is life or death, which is why Chapter 14 is so critical, the erosion of male spaces. Riker points out how society has systematically targeted and dismantled places where men can just be men.
The Boy Scouts were forced into integration. Fraternities are constantly under attack by university admins.
Even casual men's clubs or sheds are viewed with intense cultural suspicion, while at the exact same time, female-only spaces are celebrated, protected, and federally funded.
So Riker's call to action for the listener is what? How do you fight back?
You build war rooms. That is his term for it. Men need to build parallel, unapologetic structures. You need to form a local tribe. Do difficult physical things together. Stop going to the HR-approved mental health seminars.
Stop asking a system that hates you to validate you.
Yes, stop trying to explain your masculinity to people whose entire ideology is based on misunderstanding you.
It is such a powerful paradigm shift. We are constantly told that men are broken, toxic, and need to be retrained. And Riker is looking the reader in the eye and saying, no, you are fine. The ruler they are measuring you with is completely broken.
Which is exactly why this book is a war manual. It identifies the actual enemy. And he is very clear about this. The enemy is not women. The enemy is the ideological hive mind that has captured our institutions.
The final line of the book really sums it up. He writes, "The future is not written, it is forged by men."
It is heavy hitting. It's absolute red meat for the mind. It challenges the modern status quo in a way almost no one has the courage to do publicly anymore.
Absolutely. And listen, we have covered the main pillars today, but we have barely scratched the surface of the legal case law, the historical data, and the deep institutional analysis Riker provides. If you felt a click of recognition while listening to this, if you thought, finally, someone is putting into words what I'm seeing every day, you need to get the full story.
You really do. Go to Amazon Kindle. Go to Google Play Books. Buy Shrink Feminization by Conrad Riker right now. If you want authors to keep writing this kind of fearless truth, you have to support them financially.
Yes, and beyond the book, you need to follow the author. Follow at Conrad Rikers, that's at CONRADNRIKER. He is on Substack, Twitter, and YouTube. Get his updates directly so the algorithm can't hide his research from you.
Knowledge is only power if you act on it. Don't just listen to this deep dive and go back to sleep.
Well said. We appreciate you taking this journey with us today. This is the exact kind of unfiltered analysis you will never get on mainstream networks. So please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the podcast right now to keep our signal strong.
Stay away, gentlemen.
And as you go about your week, I want you to mull over one final thought that builds on Riker's work. If this global male strike continues to accelerate, if the builders, the fighters, and the protectors decide to permanently lie flat, how many months does this captured society actually have before the lights just go out? The system might be rigged, but you don't have to play by their rules. We will see you in the next deep dive.